Welcome to the history. Welcome to the culture. Welcome to community that dreams and achieve. Living in change for better tomorrow. Welcome to the Eunice Malath Show.
Welcome to the Eunice Malath Show. I'm your host, Eunice Malath. We have another exciting program for you today. We're going to feature the ESCCA organization. ESCCA stands for Equatorial South Sudanese Community Association. They held their annual conference in the state of Iowa, which we had the honor of attending. It was their 14th conference. And the program is going to start by a presentation that was held by Dr. Henry Lejukule, who is the president of the ESCCA chapter in Iowa, presenting on security issues in the Equatorial region of South Sudan. So he'll be moderating a panel, not only a panel, but also a discussion among various groups within the conference. This will be followed by Dr. Sam Laki discussing the veteran politician from South Sudan, the contributions that he made. And it's none other than veteran politician Aliaba James Surur, also known as Solid Rock. We will end the program by featuring gospel music by the band that performed there at the conference, and then we'll also end the night by having the Bari tribe perform their traditional dance. I hope you'll enjoy.
I would say of the day, because it's going to touch on the issue of security of Equatoria. Now when we mention the word security, probably with many bells are ringing in our heads because each of us have their own definition of what security might be. But in this session it's going to be interactive, so we'll be breaking up into groups. And I'm going to tell you what is going on in my mind in terms of how these groups will be formed. Basically, the people facing in front will turn their seats and face the people facing behind them, and they automatically form a group of, is it 8 people or 6 people, depending on how many people are there. If you are very few in your side, you come sit on some seats where there are more people so that you form a group. Okay? And we're going to have some open discussions. I hope that we have some papers and pens to jot down, and each group will have some a leader who will take notes from that group. Because you see, none of us has monopoly of these issues. It doesn't matter whether it is me speaking or Father Mark or Professor Laki or Dr. Passioni. These issues are subjective. But overall, when we start a conversation, we believe that we can be able to filter some good substance out of it, some kind of an agreement on what we think makes sense. And that's what we will be doing tonight. Probably we're doing this for the first time at this scale, where we will be involving everybody actively to give their opinion. I will be calling some speakers who are going to be starting this session briefly. One speaker, brief introduction, and then there are going to be 2 testimonies, and I hope those individuals are there. And then we will go into the group discussions. Does that make sense? And so we're going to be talking about the question of security of Equatoria and the causes of state fragility. Why is our country wobbling like this, like it's sitting on an earthquake. There's got to be reasons. And all of us can identify those reasons, and we probably have ideas of how to fix them. And those fantastic ideas is what we want to tap into. But let me give some very brief thinking. We fought for 17 years, and we didn't quite get finished with it. We started it again and fought for 25 years. When we were going for referendum, we had to work very hard to explain to the people the fundamental issues of this land and why we should vote for separation. Now, war is not an end in itself. We fought because we were being marginalized. Now, after we liberated ourselves, it seems like we've forgotten what we fought for. That means probably some of us are thinking that war is an end, and therefore we can do it all over again. So I will give you the opportunity to give us your belief on that. But this is my understanding that marginalization meant the Arabs were developing themselves. They were putting everything in their homes. We as Southerners were being neglected, not developed. Now that we're independent, there is one element which is very important for development. Does anybody know what that element is? Security, peace. Peace. Fundamental one is peace. You want to develop, you gotta have peace. Period. End of story. And I believe that we as South Sudanese and Africans in general, sometimes we are victims of our own culture. Your child fights with a neighbor's child, and he actually doesn't want to fight and comes on crying, you say, believe it, and you cough. And then you beat him up. But if he's the one beating the other boy, you say you're a brave person. All right? You're very happy because your child is very brave. And so there are those cultures where people believe in justice of the stick. If you can whack somebody with a stick, you are the brave person. And that's how the word coward is born. When you don't like that, you're going to be called a coward. Somebody here earlier said, we Ecuadorians are being called cowards. And almost, I think everybody in this room is thinking, no, we don't want to be cowards, we want to be brave. That means you're ready to pick up a stick and whack somebody. So, but the base is that if we want to development, there's got to be peace. But we are going to have to get you ideas of how do we develop Southern Sudan.
The question is, what can you do as an Equatorian to solve a security problem back home? So we want to come up with some points that, okay, now we look at this, the security situation in Equatorial can be addressed from this level. Then we offer our opinion. Okay? That makes sense?
We need to start opinions.
Yeah, we just want to make very clear some opinion on how can we go ahead and solve the security problem in Equatorial, stabilize. Okay, and we know what are the causes. What are the causes of this problem? What are the causes of insecurity in Equatorial? And we know very well what are the causes. It was mentioned very well. Some of the causes are man-made. For example, in Equatorial, majority of us are not cattle raised. We don't keep cattle. We are farmers. One of the major problems that brings us is internal displaced people. Internal displaced people who are affected by war from other states. For example, people from Bor move and come to the land of Equatoria and occupy our land As a result, we cannot cultivate. We cannot cultivate. So cattle has become no internal displays. Just about internal displays. There has been a huge influx of internal displays to equatorial land. And to give an example, in Nemule, 3/4 of the land has been occupied by displaced people who came with cattle. And these cattle are causing insecurity to the inhabitants. Insecurity such that we cannot produce food. Our land is being used for food, and if cattle are there, if we want to cultivate, the cattle come and consume what? Our agricultural land. And if that's the case, we want to talk to the cattle owners, they came up with issues.
That's good. Right. Now you have.
Honestly, in my view, there are a couple of things. There is the issue of the fact that the whole of South Sudan itself is up into a security problem right now. And then the fact that Equatoria itself has a problem. For instance, okay, my dad right now lives in Cuba. You know, recently he had asked that I visit him, okay? But that became a problem because when I called him and said, Dad, I got the tickets, I got the kids, I got the wife, I'm gonna come. I call out the holiday you didn't marry, you know? He said, son, I don't think so. I don't think so. I don't think you need to come right now. Wait a little bit until the things improve to a certain extent. And so that is a serious problem that we really need to address.
And that is physical security. We have been living together as Equatorians for a long time without major issues of land, people fighting over lands. We know there have been lands that have been contested, but they never come up. For example, Mangala before up to CPA. That's where the case of Mangala came up between Bari and Mundari. And even now, as a county, or what? It's a county, right? It is divided into two. There's a section of it under Bari administration. Section of it under Mundari administration. Because this issue came up after CPA. You know, then people deciding, looking, okay, this is Mangala Bari claim that Mangala is Bari. Mundari claim Mundari is Mundari.
Excuse me, can I
Yes. Yeah.
I think you're getting out of topic because it's like you're discussing what the pastor was saying between two of you. Because you give us two questions that we have to think about it. Yeah, and I think maybe you can give chance like each person who want to say something about the question that they're giving to us.
I'm going there. That's my point. I said my point. Yeah. This is my point. How I look at it.
Yeah.
Because everybody.
But this is the question that Abuna was telling there. It doesn't concern me. This is his own point of view.
Yes.
But we are here in this table for these two questions that he will give it to us.
Exactly. The two questions. The first question is exactly summarizes all these points. According to my point of view.
Sorry. So what you mean is, okay, you disagree with Abuna, so you can leave that for him. Now, what do you think, you at the point?
Yeah.
What is the problem? 2 or 3, what is the issue? In your own view.
Most of you already know who Solid Rock was, but suffice to say that he was born in 1930. He went to Yendoru Village School, Yei Elementary School, Lukai Intermediate School, Rumbek Secondary School, and after completing at Rumbek, he became a teacher and was sent to Bataruda. In those days, for those who are old enough, you know what Bataruda was the institute to go if you wanted to become a teacher. And after that, when he was already being a teacher, he taught in Magazal, at Atar, at Okaro, which the name changed to Palataka. When I was actually a kid in the 60s, he became the headmaster of Lanya Technical. And I used to see him very often. And of course, also during the movement when he ran into the Congo, he held many positions: information officer, director of education for Anyanya. At one time, actually, one of the most significant things that was confirmed when I read Lagos' book was that he was the purchasing officer or procurement officer for weapons for the movement. And most of you may not understand, but that was a very, very important position. Why? Because when the movement started, Anyanya started, some of the Anyanya fighters actually were carrying sticks. They didn't have enough weapons. They shared them. They didn't have enough bullets. And then when they had weapons, the weapons were all of different makes. Somebody could carry a shotgun, another one is carrying a Wazara, a Kamsa, and so on. So that means they couldn't even share the bullets. But when the Congolese had their civil war, that at least brought a lot of infusion of arms. And the late Eliopajemi Suru became the purchasing of procurement officer and so on. And on the basis of Lagos' book, that the officer who was stationed in Aba was complaining about this short guy that was always buying weapons from his troops. Okay, so that was a very important role. And of course, after 1972, he came to Juba, became deputy director of information, worked also with youth and culture and what have you and so on, took so many positions. So in time of crisis, he always shows up. And then he led them. And then when he was in Khartoum, he was very active, meeting ambassadors, talking freely and what have you, and that made Bashir and his security apparatus completely unhappy. And all that. He was always being picked up every now and again. And finally, of course, they got him and beat him up. They beat him so badly that he had to go to Nairobi for treatment. And then when he got to Nairobi, he was not happy with the state of affairs with the movement, SPLM. And of course, John Garang approached him because many Equatorians were disillusioned with the movement. They didn't think that they were being treated fairly. There were many of them that were living in camps. And those of you who lived in camps in northern Uganda, you know how difficult it was. Okay? These people were being harassed. Some of them actually were losing their limbs. And of course, even if you had been with SPLA and you're in the camp, there's no way that you could defend your people and what have you and so on. So Yoruba was tapped to mobilize the Equatorians that had deserted the movement living in camps to go back and capture much of Equatoria. And then he made that happen. In 1997, following his mobilization, SPLA went and captured places like Kejikeji, Kaya, Yei, Morbo, Lanya, Mundri, even Tali, and that linked it up with Western Equatoria as far as Rumbek. Just think of that. So you could see, if you look at the example of the purchase of arms, Kokoram, activities in Yusa, the capture of much of Equatoria and all that, and you know that capture was very important. In fact, it convinced Bashir that SPLA was becoming stronger and he really had to do something about it, and so on. This is the kind of man that we are talking about. Now, how many of you can feel this man's shoes? Where instead of pursuing the individual interest, he literally pursued the group interest. Can we emulate that? Because if we can do that, all of us will win. But if all of us are pursuing our own individual interests, there's a concept in ecology that some of you might know, called the tragedy of the commons. Tragedy of the commons, where individual interests clashes with group interests, and then at the end of the day, the group interest suffers, and then the ruin is for all of us. And we don't want that. So let us be mindful that we can reconcile group interests and individual interests and so on. So, brothers and sisters, what I can say is that I knew the late, and this was a kind of a man that you and me would be quite happy standing on his shoulders, so that we can all stand very high, see very far, and reach the skies. And you know, Uncle Idelba, wherever you are, and all that, we are all thankful for all the work that you have done. And thank you very much. And Equatorians, please let us rise and give thanks to this great person that has just, although he's departed, his spirit still lives in us. He's still in this room. Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching this show. We look forward to seeing you next time.
If you believe, you can achieve.